Hey there. Okay, chapter 22, Song of Mornius. Lots of stuff that needed to be cut out of this chapter. Either it didn't work or it was just, looking back at it now, again, for the first time in 10, 12 years, I'm like, this doesn't really make sense. This doesn't work. This doesn't, whatever. So I have streamlined this chapter. It is only 10 pages long. Unlike chapter 21, which was 18 pages. That's why the video is, I think it's like 34 minutes long. That was a bitch to read. That chapter was long. Anyway, this one is not nearly so long, and it has had several pages of it cut out. And the actual chapter itself has been revised, seriously revised. So I think this is a really good thing, and again, an exciting thing for this story. So without, I keep saying this, but it's like, what else am I going to say? Further ado, here is, ooh, this is going to rhyme. Without further ado, introducing chapter 22. Okay, that was stupid. Just, here it is, chapter 22. Song of Mornius, chapter 22. Beyond the protective canopy of the forest, Avalar crashed to her knees. Galen stared from behind Tarek's shoulders as she doubled over, clutching at her stomach. "Pony, no!" she gasped. "I am not prepared!" Springing from Ebony's back, Tarek rushed toward her. "Prepared?" he demanded, his hazel eyes fierce with concern. "Avalar, what's wrong?" Reaching her, he seized her arm. "Prepared for what?" "This!" She coughed from deep in her chest, and Galen saw blood fleck her lips. She thrust out her free arm, pointed toward Teardon and the small figure standing before it. "Him!" she cried. "He drains me! It is too much!" Galen leaned over the hard seat of Tarek's empty saddle. Though he yearned to give her comfort, he was helpless to move, shaken breathless by waves of hot power scouring his skin. He stumbled as he slid from Ebony's rump, then fell. He had heard and felt old magic thrumming through Avalar, had sensed her connection with the mindless fire back at camp, but nothing had prepared him for this. Wind shrieked across the fields, as if the land itself drew breath, inhaling fiercely the entire sky. Across the wide snowy fields, Galen saw the small figure crouch down, then hammer his fists at the ice. The terrain recoiled, rippling waves across the field like a sea. Ice shattered and flew, filling the air with glints of the sun. Glistening black stone erupted from the frozen crust, driven skyward by gouts of steam. Wings spread, the figure pulled itself erect amidst the chaos. He turned his head, and Galen saw the face. It was an elf, the line of his mouth both stern and fierce, the violet eyes in his head blazing. As Galen watched, he threw back his head. With lean bare arms he made a summoning gesture. "Tarek, hurry!" cried Avalar. "We must flee!" Old magic blasted from the elf, springing silver and white from every line of his form. With a deafening roar, gouts of flame slammed the city, shattered like brittle glass its crumpled walls. Below the arch and splintered domes, Teardon melted, its fragments blurring, slumping like hot wax down a candle, sinking into a lake of raging fire, bubbling hot within a rising forest of raw black stone. A forest that flattened, widened, merged. Avalar screamed. Galen turned toward her, his right arm shielding his face. His eyes burned as the scent of rotten eggs stung his nostrils. Blindly he groped for the giant through the searing light stabbing his eyes, even from around his arm. Somehow, without knowing it, he had fallen. He felt Avalar's big hands lifting him up. "Avalar, no!" Tarek shouted as she also seized him. "We must stop him! Giant, listen to me! This is Teardon! Cameron City!" She groaned in pain as she pushed past them both. Without breaking stride, she dragged them by their arms from the fire's white heat. Roth huddled with the horses behind the trees. His eyes were closed, his arms trembling as he fought to restrain the terrified beasts. Muffled eruptions sounded behind them. Again the ground heaved, throwing them flat into the shivering snow. Galen yelped as Avalar pulled him under her torso, shielding him and Tarek both from a second crackling blast. "Horam's balls!" Tarek snarled as he shoved against her weight. "Let me up!" "Be still!" she cried. "That is Pony! Do you hear? It is not Cameron's city, it is his!" The ground shuddered beneath them. Avalar groaned through her teeth, and Galen felt her tremble, felt the soil and wind and stone draining her magic. As she recoiled at the pain, her hand released his arm. He clambered to his feet, dragging Mornius with him. Tarek was helpless, pinned by the giant's size, if not her strength, but he was free. Ignoring Avalar's low gasp of warning, he turned and stumbled toward the lone winged elf. The city reformed itself as he ran, ribbons of lava stretching tall, hardening into walls and streets, an intricate weaving of stone to form domes, and the pulverizing of more stone into sand to form crystal. Galen raced for Avalar, who was his friend, toward the strange elf, killing her. He ran until the heat of the air seared his lungs, until the very sky above him turned to fire. The elf turned slightly, and a hand of power slammed him flat, binding at once his neck, wrists, and ankles with hoops of granite where he lay. He opened his mouth to shout a warning. A scream of power muffled his voice. Before his eyes he watched the fire rearing back from the sky, the hardening of the stone completing the city's rebirth. Again the elf made a summoning gesture, and, as if like an afterthought, a new sculpture was born at the heart of Tyrdawn's restored square, a male giant standing erect and triumphant, his fist clenching a broken chain above his head. "Stop!" Again Galen struggled to be heard as the thunder of magic lessened. He strained with his fingers toward Mornius lying inert beside him. "Please stop it! You're hurting her!" The elf dropped his hands. He sagged for a moment, his shoulders hunched, arms dangling from their sockets. Then, with a shuddering sigh, he turned. Galen thrust against the solid stone holding him. Mornius lay beyond his reach, leaving him helpless as the elf walked sternly toward him through gouts of white steam. Pony was slight of build, Galen noted, yet powerful. Even now his fingers wove magic from the air. The stone of Galen's fetters softened like clay. With effort he found he could pull his arms free, then his neck and ankles, while the elf quietly watched. Trembling, Galen retrieved his staff, then climbed to his feet before the elf's keen scrutiny. "There is someone who wants to meet you, Galen Laval," Pony said. "He will be waiting inside Halram's temple." Pony stood back, folding his wings so Galen could see past him. "This is old magic, you see," he said as an explanation. "With it I have undone the harm Malian dared to inflict. Behold, Tyrdawn stands again!" Galen swallowed against the strain in his throat. He ran a pulsing hand across his forehead. "You were draining her magic. Sudden tears stung his eyes. "I couldn't make you hear me." The elf frowned. "Avalar?" His voice cracked with sudden concern. "That was not my intent. Show me where." With a brisk clap of his hands, a sculpted staff of crystal materialized before him. It hovered in the air briefly, then Pony clasped it. Galen trembled as Pony's power-strong fingers caught at his forearm and snatched him close. This elf was nothing like the Seekers and Meredith, the peace-loving guardians of the Circle. He was a mage, an archmage of old magic, willing and able to kill. The elf lifted a silvery brow. "I am Pony." He stressed his name like a title. "Adopted son of the Connell elves. The people of my clan ward the giants." He paused, his violet eyes meeting Galen's flinching, frightened ones. In a softer voice he said, "Show me where, Galen Laval. I need to know if I have hurt her." Galen flinched as the elf, still holding him close by the wrist, flicked a glance to the crystal staff. "Ah!" Pony exclaimed. "There you are." A silent scream of power erupted from the depths of the elf's staff. Galen caught a sudden, dizzying glimpse of the snow far below, felt wind and pressure and the brief sensation of travel, so much pressure on his face and chest, all in the span of a few quick blinks. Galen stumbled, reeling as his feet again touched the ground back among the trees near Roth and the horses. Already the elf had released his arm, leaving him behind and forgotten, to crouch beside the giant. "Avalar!" Reaching out, Pony touched her cheek. "Giant, you were far from my city when I began. Forgive me. I thought you were safe." Carefully, Avalar eased herself from Tarek to set him free, then sat dejectedly on her hands with her face lowered, her gaze on her curled fingers. Beside her, Tarek jerked himself angrily to his feet and glared at the winged elf. "Deep breath," Pony advised him softly. "Look upon the city you love and reconsider well what words you say to me." Avalar was shaking her head. "I am well enough now, Pony," she replied. "The magic you drained has been restored to me, but please don't take me with you. There is still so much for me here to do. They need me. Please." She lowered her voice. "Do not force me home." Pony's laughter startled Galen. The elf mage was shaking his head, crouching by her side, stroking her forearm gently. "As if I haven't learned by now I can never force you, or any giant. There is, however," he nodded toward Tarek, "this human beside you and his desires. This man called Tarek Florin, whom you respect and who understands very well the need to keep you safe. Young giant, consider. Is it kindness to put such a burden on him when it is safer for you to be at Hathra?" Galen watched Tarek turn from surveying the city to stare in awe at Pony, his expression one of wonder and gratitude. "Think on it, giant," Pony continued gently. "It is your freedom, yes, it is your life, but your being here puts Talankai at risk, and heaps more responsibility on this man you have made your leader." Trembling, Avalar turned where she sat to face Tarek. "Have I harmed you?" she asked in a soft voice. "You asked me to go once. Do you still want me to go?" "I don't want you to go," Galen said. Ignoring the sudden weight of the elf's regard, Galen moved through the melted snow to kneel by her side. "Too much has happened," he said, meeting her sad blue eyes. "I need your strength. Halram," he flashed a nervous glance toward the winged elf, "will protect you while you protect us. You have, and you do. You saved me, Avalar. You can't go." Above his head, Tarek nodded to Pony. "There's your answer, elf," Tarek told him gruffly. "And no," he said, turning to Avalar, "I do not want you to go." "I too protect Avalar," Pony told them, "and I will continue to do so, but there is a price if you wish her to stay. I need Galen Laval to accompany me. There is a task before him now that he must endure." "I wish not to be a burden," Avalar was saying, "not to anyone." Again Tarek glared at the elf. "You've never been a burden to any of us, Avalar," Tarek said gently. "That part of this discussion is over. You're with us now. But as for Galen here, no." Tarek moved around where Galen sat to confront the elf. "If anyone's hurt Avalar, it's you," Tarek said. "We just spent all night trying to rescue our healer. Avalar risked her life. I assure you he'll not be going anywhere with you." Galen saw a look like steel enter the elf's violet eyes. "You have heard of the wizard Veeler?" Pony lifted his chin to meet Tarek's glare. "The slaver of giants?" "I, Pony, outsider and alien to this world, was his slayer. I am also Sephram's chosen, as Halram has chosen your friend. Do not presume to doubt me. I am not and could never be Malian's servant. I would no more wish harm to befall Galen Laval than I would to Talankai itself. I assure you, your healer will be safe with me." "In sooth," Avalar whispered beside Galen, "he is the greatest of the elves. He is a friend bond to my father and counselor to many giants. He means us no harm, Leader Tarek, but his magic is," she shivered, "dangerous." Pony grinned at her. "To be fair," he said, "I am not from here. Elves from my world, Sharan, are immortal, or something close to it, while the races here are not. We," he nodded to Galen, "often visit other worlds, like the Earth, to help the more primitive cultures. Your people mistook us as—" He laughed softly. "Angels, I believed you called it, though I am the only one of us with wings." "I have had a lot longer to hone my skill, Avalar," he said, returning his attention to the giant crouched before him. "As for Tirdan, it is cherished by the Eris elves who dwell in these forests and hold the Talador arts, and by me, for I was its creator at the start. For that they requested of me to remake it for them." Galen, climbing shakily to his feet, watched Pony through a haze of confusion. It made no sense he would matter when there were creatures like this. Never in his life had he met this kind of power. Even Mornius at its burning brightest was not this. Magic swarmed around the elf. It hung in the air, in every breath filling his lungs. It was old magic, and Warder's fire too, and something else keeping them apart. "I don't understand," Galen said finally. A grinning Pony nodded at him. Galen swallowed beneath his stare. "You defeated Velar, so why not Malian? I can feel how strong you are, yet you hold back. You say Avalar threatens Talankai, but at least she tries to help." "Do you want to understand?" Pony asked. Galen's knees buckled as the elf mage drew close. Pony caught him, held him to keep him from falling. Before Galen could blink, Pony pried Mornius from his hand. At once the skystone went black. Galen stared as Mornius went utterly lifeless in Pony's grasp, a dead stick in his hand. Pony's eyes were strict as he met Galen's own. Old magic creates, it never destroys. New magic destroys to create. Because they conflict in their nature so much, any joining of old magic and Warder's fire is a threat to the health of the world. Sephram knows this. He resides beyond the sky where his power is not felt. Halram knows this too, but he is here where his power is felt, so he forbears. Malian, however, would not forbear. He would strike at me from inside his mountain. With his power he would seek to absorb my strength and drain the warder Sephram who works through me and is his foe. Then he would free himself from hiding and utterly destroy everything. Is that what you want? Staring at his staff, Galen shook his head. The problem lies not just with Malian, Pony continued. If Sephram beholds his enemy through my eyes, he will respond. Trust me in this, Galen Laval. Sephram would, and the world would end. Galen trembled as Pony's violet gaze gripped him. I need to surrender, I know. Who I am isn't so important, right? My freedom. He shook his head. Not important. So he'll possess me, and I need to let him. The elf stared back at him in silence, then turned again toward Tarek standing near. Did you hear him? Pony asked. Do you see now why this is necessary and absolutely imperative? He needs to prepare for what lies ahead, and he needs my help to understand. You cannot give him this help, but I can. If you want any chance of winning this thing, you will give me charge of this man's safety for just a few hours. I will see that he is not harmed. Tarek paused. He turned, and Galen stood still while his friend looked him over. After what seemed like a dozen held breaths, Tarek sighed in defeat and slowly nodded.